guys are live.
Hey, Tink.
I can't.
Can you hear?
We can't hear her.
I can't hear. You can't hear her? Okay.
No, we can't hear her.
If we can, let's go ahead.
Tink, you gotta check your mic settings. We can't hear you.
All right.
Hi.
Oh,
there
I
she is.
can hear you.
Okay.
All right.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Glad to have you on, Tink. How's it going today? You've had a busy day.
Oh, I did indeed. Lots of running around, making 50 million copies, legal stuff. Oh,
it is
always fun.
paper. Yes, always so much paperwork. No, we're so glad to have you on board. We got to see your show with PJ on Orville Nation, and it just kind of touched us, kind of everything that you're going through. And I was hoping you could just kind of come on and also tell our members and tell our fans kind of what you're going through, what your relationship is with the Discovery team, how that started, and just tell us a little bit, and then we'll get into what's going on.
Okay. Well, to tell the story, you sort of have to go back to the beginning. I was born 3 months before Star Trek aired, and that's usually how I sort of preface my Star Trek-ness. So I didn't actually get to see it until the 70s. And I actually lived in South Dakota, where I joined the Lakota tribe in the 70s when it all came out. And the Lakota are part of the group that was going to help me work with Star Trek Discovery. And so skip forward a few years, I became an electronic publisher, an e-publisher, back in the 90s when I worked in the book industry. So one of my books that I helped edit won a Benjamin Franklin Award. And I realized I had a really unique way of building books. I wasn't electronic at that time, but the way I put books together is very much the Silicon Valley way. And so when electronic books came and bookstores started to decline, I basically said, hey, let's put this together and do something unique. But with Star Trek, I was actually a crowdfunding patron of Star Trek Continues. And so when Rod Roddenberry and Jonathan Frakes were on helping develop Star Trek Continues with Vic Mignogna and Todd Halberkorn, we were all talking about, there was so much we didn't know about Spock. Spock had been in Star Trek, or had been in Starfleet for 26 years or 16 years prior to Kirk. There was a lot we didn't know about him, or Amanda, his mother. We didn't know a lot about Harry Mudd. And we talked about doing, it would be awesome if there was a renaissance and they had series that sort of leapfrogged after each other rather than having side-by-side series at the same time, which sort of burnt people out between Voyager and Deep Space Nine. And so that's where the conversation sort of got started and where I started. And then, but in the beginning, I was just like everybody else, watching what they were doing with the ideas we had discussed in Star Trek Continues.
Okay, so you were, just to break in really quick, so how did you get involved with Star Trek Continues? Did you volunteer, or was that?
I was part of their patrons as far as like donating. And then I also helped with delivery of their perks. So I was involved in sending their sick bay pillows out to people as a perk. And so I did a few different things and just continually promote them and try to get talent to them. I'm part of Legion M as well. So I'm really involved in getting fans part of shows.
Okay, so you were like a super fan, super supporter. And then how does that link you up with the Discovery team?
Well, they call him a patron. So like the Lucille Balls of the world are considered a patron within the fandom. And so with Star Trek Discovery, I was just like everybody else watching it. And then during one of the After Treks, which I had recommended an ESPN styled show, After Trek became that, Ted Sullivan mentioned the Props Bible. And then later in an article, like a week later, I read what he meant about the Props Bible, and I went, oh my Lord, I can build this. Now, I had already sent them a contract about a year and a half, no, about a year, maybe 10 months prior, offering to do research work coinciding to help them keep the science intact and bring ideas for them. So I had already been working with the art department and the props department. And
okay. And you sent a contract to CBS, just to be clear, you sent a contract to CBS saying, I would like to do this for you. I would like to work on the team to do this. And the props department, you were already kind of sort of doing that anyways, right?
I was already, they all knew my face. And at that point, the moniker I went by is the Star Trek Belle, and which is an Imagineering concept borrowed from Disney. And so they already knew me. And I was bringing them information sort of like a newspaper every day, multiple times a day, and the writer's room. And I was touching base with all of them anyway. Ted and I were connected, and several of the writers and the actors and I were connected. And so I said, okay, I'll do all this research in expectation for a job. If you see one that be beneficial. And
so sort of like an intern kind of to begin with, right?
Sort of, just basically, get my foot through the door. But when I saw Ted talk about the Props Bible, I realized as an electronic publisher, I could build that. And so I got on the Props Masters calendar to try to get my foot through the door. And I just started trying to build stuff. But I couldn't actually make it onto his calendar till about May. And then, and that was because he was producing the show. He didn't have time to stop and think about, this other project.
Right.
So I had to wait for him to be between the series and production to stop. And so then I got on board. I showed him what I had so far, and he was really excited. So then we built out a demo, and I did it for free. Again, with this idea that at some point a job would materialize.
Right. And the demo was was it a physical demo? Was it an electronic demo?
It's an electronic book. That's what I do, is I build electronic books.
Perfect.
And
okay.
so at that point we had two contracts. We had the first contract, and then we had a non-disclosure contract for the actual demo. And the Las Vegas Comic-Con came, and Van Sitter didn't have time. We waited till after the Comic-Con, and one of his assistants saw it. She barely understood what we were trying to explain. I think of the best way to explain it, it's like a Sears and Roebuck's catalog with real-time inventory. So you can flip the pages of an electronic book and see everything the props department or the fashion department has, or the art department has. And directors could literally say, I want that jacket, send it to this set at that time on that day. Or
cool.
I need that phaser. Yeah. Or they could say, I need that phaser, but more like the Borg version. And the props master could say, okay, I know what that is. Everything needs to be green, and change all the colors out. And then he could quickly from the book make what they need and then send it to the set. So it was really revolutionary and pretty darn exciting to build. It was wonderful. Our interactions were great. And then again, Van Sitter's assistant didn't know what it was. she thought it was for archiving, and she recommended them taking a pass. And of course I was hurt, but it was, okay. But then COVID hit, and I realized everybody was sitting at home working on it from home. Maybe they had more time to revisit it. So then they asked me to do a second book for free. And at that point, looking back, I should have said, no, this one needs to have some kind of buy-in.
Right.
Yeah. And at that point, with the first book, we had a real-time inventory promotion, but nothing you could actually touch and make work because it's a demo. And in the second book, we built that out to be something that you could actually work. They have.
Yeah. So the first one was a demo. Second one was more like what it would really be like. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, each one of them had widgets and things that you could touch that would actually move.
Okay.
The inventory wasn't built out. So like if there was a phaser, some of the phaser images were movies, and you could pop open the phaser and it would turn on and you could see all the lights and all the sounds come alive. Some of them were actually AutoCAD, and you could touch it and flip it around.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, it was really nice. And so a director could say, I like that, but I need it, 3 times bigger or 2 times smaller. Right from the book, send a little post-it directly to the props master, and he would get it literally in about 5 minutes.
And then they could maybe 3D print it, or somebody could make it quickly or something like that.
Yeah, there would be a link, and they could go onto CBS property website and pull it down because they're all authorized. But you couldn't pull the file from the book and print it out of the book.
Okay.
We needed to still have like firewalls in case somebody, because these are books that you would keep on your phone just like a normal electronic book. So
Okay.
if the book got lost, if the phone got lost, then the file is out there. So there had to be different safety features. And the beauty of these books is that you can remotely, you can delete them remotely. So if a phone did disappear, then you could just delete it that night and not worry about CBS property being out there. So it had some wonderful features. The second one really had more to do with inventory, but then used a lot more of their images. The first one I used images of my friends who were astronauts had taken out in space. And I also used some of NASA's free images. So it was more inspirational, but less Trek. So they wanted to see more of themselves in the second book, and it was a lot of fun to do.
And then at some point you got buy-off from like Michelle Paradise, right?
Yes, during the second one, we had our pitch, and it started 10 minutes late because one of the employees did a bizarre 10-minute skit during our time, which barely made any sense. And 2 of the people sort of disappeared from the meeting. And as I can tell, took our files, which is pretty upsetting. And then when they came back in, the VP or the executive producer at that time, he stopped the meeting in that he was trying to get somebody to make me stop talking. Like it was very strange. I would say 20 minutes in, he didn't want to hear anymore. And he was telling everybody to make me stop talking. But at that point, I realized something weird was going on. And I rushed ahead to slides that they hadn't seen. And
so he was being dismissive.
Yes, and very rudely. And so at that point, Michelle was looking at the new slides, and she was asking questions because she realized from the slides that not only could they develop the books or the TV series, but there was a whole list of different kinds of books. So you could onboard an actor in England, in Canada, and in the United States, all from the book. You could do purchase orders from the books. her writer's room could have their own story arcs. I could build an electronic book that just kept all their story arcs across all of the series in a book.
Wow, that's
And
intense.
yes. So at that point, she was really excited by what she was seeing. And then she asked more questions like for the art department and for the costume department. One of her biggest questions was, well, wait a second. Who would do all this work? If you're building a Sears and Roebuck catalog, that thing was like 300 pages of images. Who's going to take all of those images? And I said, I would be happy to bring in my family members who were professional models, photographers, and then the Lakota, because I'm part of the tribe. And a lot of them already have college degrees. They already have technical school college degrees. I'd bring a group in, however big or small they had, and we would just go through the warehouses. We would go to the vendors. They have 130 artists that build Star Trek Discovery, everything. And so I was happy to bring people to wherever they wanted. We put the clothing on, take all the photographs, all the information. And we would do it not only for Discovery, but for any other series, Picard,
Right.
Strange New World. We were willing to do all of that. And so she was really excited. She liked it. Akiva liked it. But again, you know, this other executive was pretty much shutting it down and saying no.
Do we know what executive that is?
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to pull them out exactly.
Well, let's. It's not Alex Kurtzman, right?
No, it wasn't Alex. Alex is a sweetheart. Oh,
okay.
Sorry.
So you were basically dismissed from that. Now, did it get weird after that? Were they kind of like not connecting with you after that happened?
Yeah, after actually literally the day, you know, at that point, to end the pitch, Akiva said we did a good job and I looked great. We were told by the exec that, you know, with COVID, they didn't have as much money. They were really hard hit by having all the shutdowns and all the lockdowns in California, and they were just going to take a pass. And if they were going to develop something, they would do it in-house is the word he used. And I said, look, let's be honest here. If your team in the year between the first pitch and this pitch had been able or capable, technology-wise, to build something like this, they would have already done it in the last 10 months, but they didn't. And I did, and then I took it to the next level even more based on your recommendation, your request. And so I've done it not once, but twice. And they're not capable of doing this. He didn't like that. But all the merging between CBS and Paramount was happening.
Right.
And so that, just because that's my opinion, doesn't mean that they didn't have somebody who could, but they were in the middle of a merge. But then the next day, the props master called, and at that point, and I felt that was, let me go back a second. I felt that what that executive said was a threat. I felt at that point that they were going to take my work and do it in-house. Not just that they were going to do the idea and the concept in-house, but between the 10 minutes where people disappeared, I felt like something really bad had happened.
Yeah, like, hey, Tink, thanks for this great idea. We're going to go ahead and do it in-house and bye. Okay.
But like they were taking my work. That's what I felt like.
Right. It sounds like it.
And my electronic folders or files were actually up on their website at that point. And so I just felt something really bad happen. And then the next day, the props master called me because we're in 2 different countries. My phone couldn't call him, but his phone could call me. But I had to accept the special way. So I accepted the call, and at that point, he threatened me that if I took our ideas to Disney or Pixar, that we would get blacklisted and we'd never work in Hollywood again and all this other stuff. At that point,
What?
I was really threatened. My son pretty much exploded.
Wow.
We were really angry.
Tink, do they own the
and-
copyright on books? Does CBS
No.
buy the trademark on
They
books?
They never bought the books, so they don't own anything. And when we talked to the lawyer and tried to get, we tried to get 2 apologies from the people that had threatened us, and the executive and the props master. We wanted open public apologies. And they didn't refuse, but they pretty much sidestepped that. And then I told them that if they took our books, because everything a publisher does is about formatting. If you pick up a Random House book and you remove every word and every picture, it's the format that makes it Random House. If you pick up a book from DK, which is British publishing house, and they use like the white photographs and all big pictures, and you took away again all the pictures and the wording, it's the format that makes the publisher.
Okay.
So
at some point you felt like they might be using your product, right? After
yeah,
kind of giving you
this
the cold shoulder?
this year I felt they might be, when something like that happens, at first you're angry and you're upset. So, I needed to calm down. It was right around Christmas. I needed to calm down. And I talked with several friends of mine, they're politicians and they're sovereigns. So when you're part of a Native American tribe, you're part of a sovereignty. You're a sovereign nation. So if you go look in the United States Constitution, the first section talks about all the treaties with sovereign nations. That's the 500 tribes in the United States that are sovereignties. So I had other friends that were sovereign, and we talked about what the options are, because they threatened our business and they threatened us. That's 2 different threats.
Right.
And technically, I could go to the State Department. I could go to the Attorney General. I could do several different things. But I also needed to calm down. And then we had the crazy Capitol riots. We had all kinds of things happen in our country.
Right.
Plus, I was still, at that point, I was still looking for work, and I was trying to get on unemployment because they had said no. So all the money that I had hoped to live on throughout COVID was gone.
Right. And we're gonna talk about how we can help you, how people can actually support you right at the end of this thing. But do me a favor and tell me, so pick it up from, they kind of give you the cold shoulder, and now you think, why did you think they might be using your books now? Because there's something that they did that made you feel like that was probably likely.
Yeah. So in, was it May or June? I would have to go back and find the Twitter announcement. But somebody from the inside mentioned that they were literally doing, and again, somebody else had some doubt about the number, but they were literally doing about 70 episodes. They were trying to they had scheduled all the episodes for all the series in the middle of the summer so that they could get them all produced before any more lockdowns happened. That was the way it was put out to me. And you're talking about a company that had produced 3 seasons of Disco, 2 seasons of Picard, and several seasons of Short Treks and Lower Decks. And they were struggling prior to my books, they were struggling to get them all out the door, each and every single time. The only reason why season 3 happened with Disco is they had already done all of their production. So when COVID hit and they were all locked down literally in their homes, all they had to do was the special effects and the sound editing and all that kind of work, but they could do it from home. So to see them go from barely making 50 to 70 episodes a year and struggling over that to hearing they were doing 70 episodes over the summer months, I went, there's no way they could be doing it unless they're using my technology.
Yeah,
And
something changed in their process, and it just so happens that you inserted something in the middle of that. So let me ask you this: what is it that you would like to see happen here? I know you're looking into this legally. What would you like to see happen going forward?
Well, if people can just help me with the insane bill that I have right now, that would be great. But for CBS, what I'd love to see happen going forward is the 2 public apologies. I don't believe in firing people. I know that that sounds really satisfying, but when it comes to Star Trek, the talent, the brains that it takes to get all of these shows going is so significant. I don't believe in firing people. I think there should be public apologies so the entire fandom who's watched me suffer these several months understands that yes, it did actually happen. And no, it's not going to happen to any of them or anybody in the future. They're acknowledging that it happened and they're giving an apology. And then I'd like to see my family and the Lakota get the work. If they produce the books, they should, based on our technology, we should get some kind of compensation for that. My books are inexpensive. They're $10,000 over a 5-year period with literally 2 or 6 updates a year.
Wow.
So every 2 months, they would have had virtually a brand new catalog. Every single series could have introduced, we would have come up to date for only $10,000. It comes up to $167 a month. You
That's
can't
a drop
beat
in the
that.
bucket. That doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. Wow.
It doesn't at a level, but we wanted to prove that it could be done. Number one, we wanted to prove that we were beneficial. And then if we were, then we could have talked about all their other series. We could have done more, and then the prices could have been different from that. We just wanted to get our foot through the door and prove the technology. If they stole our files and they proved the technology them already, then there's still 55 years worth of Star Trek to be cataloged, and they don't have time to catalog it. So why not let us, we already know what we're doing. We already are familiar with the technology. Let us come in and do the work. The Lakota, to give you an idea what it's like on the reservation, even when I was little, they were poor. Even suing people and making money, all these things through lawsuits, they suffer on the reservation because there's no work. This is work they could do at home with COVID, without COVID. They could do from home artistically. They could put themselves in each book, work with each department. And sure, I could take a group and we could go do the photographs, but then you still have to have somebody put the books together.
This just sounds like a great story, Tink. So, for any CBS execs listening, so just listen, the amount you're going to spend on marketing alone, the fact that you're taking care of a Native American tribe, number 2, giving work to people who need it. Number 3, doing something that's good for not only what's happening in Star Trek now, but future Star Trek, creations and TV series. It just sounds like a good thing. So did you get a chance to talk to Alex Kurtzman about this? Is it something that got to his level?
It got to his level, and I brought it to Akiva specifically, him and Akiva, because the people that made the threats worked under them directly. And they, of course, did the only logical thing from their perspective, which was immediately give it to the legal department.
Right.
Which, pretty much tried to say that we know you're disappointed that you didn't get it, but, it's part of the experience. You signed an NDA. And I said, yes, I did. But you have the first contract, and half of that contract has been enacted. So in the state of California, that's considered a handshake. You took the contract and you enacted half of it. You did a handshake, and now you're responsible for it. And I just couldn't get anywhere, which was part of the anger and the frustration.
Well,
But
it sounds
again,
like you have a good deal. I mean, it sounds like you're on a good path. they definitely need to recognize what's going on here. How can we help you? How can fans support you and what you're trying to do? Do you have a GoFundMe? Tell us a little about that, and we'll make sure it's in the comments in the drop down below.
Thank you very much. We have two. I have one to help me with just basic living. I'm behind in rent. My rent is pathetic, $250. It's next to nothing, but I owe several months of it. And COVID, I went 10 months without an income. And even though I was approved for unemployment because of the Bank of America fiasco, I've never received my unemployment, not in 7 months. And they figured it's going to be another 6 months before I get any of it. So what I need help with is paying rent, a GoFundMe just for rent, and then moving because I can't stay where I'm at any longer. And then there's a GoFundMe for bringing CBS to negotiations.
Yes.
We've had a few Native American law firms that are interested, and I would like to stick with that concept. You know, the people have been through enough. Just to give you a real quick idea of what it's like on the reservations, before COVID, Cheyenne River Reservation, which is in South Dakota, had an average of 10 suicides a month.
Wow.
With COVID on my reservation of Pine Ridge, and I'm in Nevada, but that's my reservation. That's where I'm connected to family. And on that reservation during COVID, we were hitting 55 suicides a month.
Wow. That's
so
incredible.
When I sit there and say, yeah, we declared a state of emergency on the res. So when I say, you know, the work is more important than the income, I honestly mean it. Even if we only employed 10 people or 50 people, it would show that there's work is possible. Work can be done in cyberspace. And it's just a question of finding, you know, if Star Trek proves itself, well, then we could do Sheldon. We could do Big Bang Theory. We could catalog literally anything and everything for all of CBS if it worked out really well. And then we're contributing back to Gene's vision, because Gene always had Native Americans in his vision. He had them with Miramonte. He had them in Next Generation. He had them in the movies. He always made sure. Yeah. V'ger, the whole very first movie, there's 3 Native Americans, very famous ones there. So he always helped us, regardless of where we were at, have some kind of hope that there was a vision for us. And if you go look at Star Trek Day last year, Akiva even brought that point out, that, you know, seeing yourself represented is part of what makes Star Trek important. So for us to not only see that, but then become a part of helping them build it and produce it was really important for all of us. Now, I'm not going to say everybody felt the same way. There were many on our tribe that thought they would not follow through with jobs. And so they had more of a wait and see kind of attitude. But I had to try. I had to. It was just, you know, they're my people. And I just knew if we could make it work, it would work really beautifully for them and for us.
Yeah, you are an absolute blessing, Tink. You know, it's so great that you're doing this and trying to do this. You have a really good fight here in front of you, something that's worthy of fighting with. You know, listen, if you guys are watching this out there, make sure you go down, check out those links to support her in her fight. And of course, get over to see the episode of Orville Nation that she did, even more information. That's a really great pod that you guys should check out. Brian, do you have anything you wanted to ask?
No, you know, you covered everything. You know, the whole book thing for me is fascinating. Have you heard of these other PropWorks books? Like I actually own a few of them. I have a PropWorks book for Star Trek and for Stargate and Battlestar and Orville. But they sort of work the same way, right? But less detail. I guess yours is like
Right.
this is how you print them. This is the lore behind them. This is the canon.
Right. So one of the props we had is a good old fashioned scimitar. I forget the Klingon name of it, but it's a curved sword. So, as I was
Batlet.
building the book,
Batlet, right?
there's actually one that's shorter. It's like
Mm.
half the size of the batlet. And, but I knew it was a scimitar. So I had to, to do the demo, I'm just giving them an idea of my knowledge level and what I could bring to the table, not just images, but what it could actually bring. And my family's been in two different country militaries for 900 years. So, and we were in the very first, we were in the very first crusade. So I know all about scimitars.
And
so
I was in the army for 4 years, and it was exhausting.
Yes. Yeah.
Couldn't even imagine 900 years.
900 years was a lot. So I was able to describe parts of the scimitar and what made it unique, and how the Klingons could take advantage of it. And so, it wasn't just me as a writer saying, there's this tool, this weapon for Klingons and that weapon for Klingons. I was able to give like a full body of information historically and how the Klingons would benefit from a sword that couldn't snap or break, which is the beauty of scimitars.
Well, and the great thing about it is that it's what you did was an electronic thing that was also interactive on a cloud. So that'd be the difference between just having a book to look through. So this is definitely something moving us into the future with technology. It's such a fascinating thing. I really hope that that you get what you deserve, and that CBS comes to its senses here. And I think you're going to do well.
Thank you. Yeah, the crowdfunding for the legal is just to get them to the table, not to punish them, not to ask for outrageous sums of money, but to get them to the table and get us work.
Yes, you got to have recognition for what you did. Period. Has to be that has to be done.
Yeah.
That's the right thing.
Yeah. Plus, that one person you were talking about sounds like a d-bag. So,
the prop master. Yeah, that's
whatever.
That was
and that was really heartbreaking. I just found the file I did with him for the very first book, and he was so excited and he was so happy to see what he was looking at. He'd never seen anything like it, and so it was heartbreaking to think, how did we go? And this is where I can be angry like in December, but in June and May I can have compassion. How did we go from a man pre-COVID who was excited about a props Bible, because he had 3 boxes of props, and Bibles are usually paper things, and he had long exploded into 3 boxes worth of paper. So how did we go from that to somebody who was willing to threaten me that if I went to another company, they'd blackball or blacklist me,
And it must be the amount of pressure that these executives can put on their employees. He's probably in a position where he's being told, hey, he's being pressured on, so he's putting pressure on you. Not an excuse, but it can only imagine kind of the pressure of Hollywood, right? Yes. Yeah. Well,
for the compassion part, I could see it, but yeah, it was heartbreaking. It's like I felt almost like we were. When you hit those creative highs, you help each other. When it came to him donating things to the book, he only donated like 3 paragraphs. But when it came to, yes, this feels right, no, that let's try something different over here, he was incredibly interactive. So it was just a fun experience all the way up into that last phone call. Then it was just like, are you serious? What are you talking about? I was, and my response to them, because I felt, even though he was making the phone call, I felt there were more people behind the call. My response was basically, why would I go to Disney or Pixar? I don't even understand. For me, it's about Star Trek, it's about my people, and it's about getting mankind back into space.
Right.
Even if Disney does something, their goal is not space exploration. They have no interest in that.
Right.
If you go to my Twitter and you see anything I do, I'm constantly promoting Space Force. I want to get us to Mars. I want to get us back into space. And I think Star Trek can be a wonderful part of that inspiration. And
Right.
so their threat didn't make sense to me. And even if somebody in the business wanted to go there, I would probably still hang out in Star Trek land.
Yes.
I'm a
No,
Trekkie.
you can tell you're a Trekkie at your core. You're a good person, and CBS needs to recognize you. And I'm so sorry this happened to you, but better
Thank
days
you.
are to come. And
True that.
if we get an update on this in the future, then we'll get you back on.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you
You
so
have
much
a
for being
great
here.
day. Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful.
All right, take care. And of course, you can help Tink by looking in the drop down below. We'll have a couple of links to her GoFundMe's, and just help her if you can, support her. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. To see the full conversation, become a member of the Popcast family. Use the link in the description below, or go to our channel and click the join button. Select your tier, and we'll see you at the next show.